Do you practice licks to clarify harmonic sequences, but aren't really making progress as an improviser? Then consider this. Why practice something pre-made when you want to invent music spontaneously? Not everyone wants to become a bebop crack, but perhaps improvise imaginatively and charmingly over popular melodies among friends or in a bar as a singer-songwriter. Music history knows ways. A model copied from Niccolò Paganini can open the door to an exciting strategy that will allow you to become an improviser in any style. And this in a few amazingly simple and obvious steps. You will not learn to reproduce prefabricated material, but to apply fundamental creative principles freely and spontaneously. We will introduce you to the concept in 4 steps. First, we will look at a popular work by Paganini to explain the basic idea behind our method. In a second step, we will explain the concept and its most important components. In the third step, we will give you a whole range of techniques with which you can develop your own improvisational personality. We will be assisted by a good friend, the flutist Jesus Evitar, who will play examples for you. Finally, there will be a comprehensive example that combines numerous techniques. You will then realize that good improvisation is not rocket science. Many improvisation tutorials turn the learning strategy on its head and focus on the most complicated aspect of improvisation, working out complex harmonies. This is a legacy of the bebop era in jazz, when virtuosity reached unprecedented heights and proud musicians liked to stand out from the crowd. Even today, it seems to be the ambition of many students to reach this level. They learn the appropriate licks and lines, such as the Gillespie Parker classic Donna Lee. In doing so, they neglect the basis of improvisation, namely the spontaneous invention of simple, convincing lines. The best way to get started is to leave the challenges of complex harmonies completely aside and study what constitutes a melodic line. The classical form of variation shows what can be gained from simple melodies as models for improvisation. Paganini's variations on the popular tune Carnival de Venice are well suited for this purpose because they reduce the harmonic framework to a simple 5/1 cadence pattern, as many Latin jazz titles do, incidentally. In doing so, he runs through a whole range of formal techniques that can be used to vary and continue a melody. This includes, for example, exploiting the extremes of the instrument's range, or diminution and micro-repetition. Paganini also creates an entire variation from an ornament such as a trill. Variations are not improvisations, of course, but they provide a wealth of material that we can systematically use in our improvisation concepts. And works such as Carnival de Venice or Mozart's variations on Ah, vous dirai-je ma mot, teach us a basic principle of improvisation. We must manage to create a line that stands out from the accompaniment, breaks free, and creates an exciting tension between free invention and accompaniment. This is also what makes Paganini's Carnival de Venice variations so appealing. The contrast between the extremely simple accompaniment pattern and the freedom and obstinacy of the melody. However, we want to develop the micro-techniques behind this in a more systematic way. If you analyze melodies and improvisations, you will recognize recurring structures. These structures differ categorically from licks in blues or jazz, which each define a specific style. The elementary structures of melodies seem to be universal. They may be stylistically influenced in their application, but their basic structure appears to be neutral and can be found in all styles. The problem is that they are difficult to categorize or systematize. This is also the reason why there are countless textbooks on harmony, counterpoint, or orchestration, but practically none on melody theory. And the few that do exist are rather unsystematic collections of analyses of successful melodies without a deeper theoretical approach. It would be presumptuous to claim that we can fill this gap in music theory. What we can offer is a kind of toolbox with all kinds of elements that can be combined and used like parts of a construction kit to assemble anything you want. However, we cannot and do not want to provide building instructions for finished structures. In a pentatonic environment, such building blocks can be practiced in a targeted manner. You can familiarize yourself with them, work out their potential and their best applications. These can and indeed must be individual and over time define your own personal style. In the next chapter, we will introduce you to some elementary building blocks or even groups of building blocks. Paganini's variations take place over a dominant tonic scheme. This means that, at least in one respect, the harmonic framework must be responded to. On the dominant, the root note of the scale must be avoided, and on the tonic, the fourth of the scale. In jazz, these notes are called avoid tones. In a later step, you can use simple 5/1 cadence models such as Carnival de Venice or Amazing Grace to learn how to deal with avoid tones. Some of our examples are based on the classic Amazing Grace. However, we will not go into detail in this video about how to deal with avoid tones. This will be the subject of another video on improvisation techniques. We want to develop our general basic scheme for improvisation completely free of harmonic challenges, because otherwise we will only focus on whether we respect the harmonic restrictions and don't play avoid tones where they would be inappropriate. To free ourselves from this completely, we want to start with improvisations in the pentatonic space, where you can't play any wrong notes. However, the point is not to show what you can do with pentatonic scales, but to create a universal model. A fundamental one derives from the main uses of music, dance and singing. Melodic structures can therefore be assigned to one or the other. Dance elements are repetitive, rhythmic with rather short, concise single notes and can also include larger interval leaps. In vocal elements, long notes that are often sung out and melismas serve as transitions. Progressions usually occur in seconds or thirds, and the pulse is based less on rhythmic movements, as in dance, and more on the prosody of language. One structural principle for improvisation is therefore the alternation between dance and vocal elements. A second group of structural principles could be described as redimensioning. We can enlarge or reduce elements. In the latter case, lines are made to pulsate with diminutions. In the former case, we examine motifs as if under a magnifying glass and expand them. The expansion can be made even more interesting with rhythmic interweaving, for example by superimposing an even meter with an odd one or using other polyrhythmic patterns. The next group includes some ornamentation techniques, including the usual suspects, trills, mordents, and gruppettos. Added to this is a technique that belongs to the basic toolkit of jazz, chromatic approximation from below. Chromatic passage can also be used for this. So-called enclosures are also fundamental to jazz improvisation. They can be defined in different ways, but the basic idea is that a target note is played around by the upper and lower neighboring notes. Finally, the registers open up further possibilities. We can alternate between octaves or, depending on the instrument, use the different sound qualities of the registers. Let's summarize the techniques once again. Melodies can be varied or formed, for example with the alternation of dance and vocal motifs, the reduction, enlargement, or polyrhythmic superimposition of the melody pattern, ornaments, chromatic approximations, and enclosures, variations in octave range. You can learn more techniques in an online course that we will soon be launching in English on our website. If you speak Portuguese, you can already take the course there. You will also find another exciting course on the fundamental principles of music. How do you come up with convincing improvisational lines? Don't wait for a flash of inspiration or divine inspiration. Creative processes always begin with random processes, blindly groping in the fog, that is, aimlessly trying things out without evaluating what you are playing and without stylistic models in mind. Over time, you will discover patterns that you find interesting and can continue to work with. If you are already thinking about harmonic laws at this stage, you may fall into a trap. Working out harmonies requires a lot of theory and practice. If you don't have a firm grasp of these, you will block the unconditional process of finding lines. To practice the basic elements of melody formation and thus create convincing whole melody lines, you can use a loop based on the pentatonic scale, over which you can also try out the techniques we have presented, but only within a pentatonic scale. In a further step, you can use simple 5/1 cadence models such as Carnival de Venice or Amazing Grace to learn how to use avoid tones. Jesus shows you what can come out of this in the following example, a free improvisation on a standard that you will surely recognize immediately. You become an improviser by acquiring as much versatile knowledge and practical experience as possible about how music works. Musical structures and their perception are much more subtle than you might think. Even an excellent improvisation can differ from a barely acceptable one in very small details. In this video, we show what the subtle perception of details in music can mean for practice strategies and improvisations. Take a look. And subscribe to our channel because the best is yet to come. And write to us to tell us what methods you use to stay creative as an improviser.